Can't go wrong with Gershwin. All right. Last week, Derek was here, and I planned on this before I realized Derek was coming right after Easter. We have the Easter lilies, which I found on sale at Kroger. And Mary Magdalene kind of got me started going through Mary Magdalene. If you realize there are actually three Marys. Actually, there's, according to the Bible historians and scholars, there's 6 or 7 Marys in the Bible total. But there's 3 that are mentioned quite a bit. Mary, the mother of God, Mary Magdalene. And Mary was the one who, if you remember, washed Jesus' feet and anointed them with oil and then wiped them with her hair. And when people were criticizing her for using expensive oil, and Christ remonstrated that that was appropriate. So of the 3 Marys, Mary Magdalene is the one that appears the most often and has the most influence. So that's what we're going to talk about. There's some interesting, I guess we're going to wander into woke territory with Mary Magdalene, but we'll get there as we go along. Chalice lighting, the mysterious pull of the unanswerable. We have chosen to bring ourselves here to this sanctuary to gather as a community of faith. We join together in solidarity as a covenanted people who are drawn together by the promise of connection and the mysterious pull of the unanswerable. We draw on experiences of love and wonder to lift our hearts and move us beyond the mundane. As seekers, wanderers, appreciators of nature, connoisseurs of curiosity, and creators of connection, our paths have converged today so that we might become present to the spirit that is worship. And so let us worship together. First hymn?
40.
Number 40.
The morning hangs a signal.
The morning hangs a signal.
Yeah.
Spirit of Life is here. This is by Rebecca Savage, one of my favorite authors from the Unitarian Universalist. Spirit of Life, eternal mystery that holds us close. Receive the meditations of our hearts this day. We come together in this quiet moment to unify our hearts again towards the clarion call of our time. May justice and equity guide us to great connection, a greater truth. Our part is just as great. To approach dismantling systems of oppression within us in order for all of us to be free. To know that when I cherish and tend to the divine spark within me, when I know in my bones that I am worthy of love and whole just as I am, that there is greater potential for mutual understanding and care. Love is not scarce. Our ability to extend compassion and grace can be. I place my hand over my heart and know I can feel the spirit of life within me. I invite you to place your hand over your heart and feel the spirit of life within you. The spirit of life is divine within us. The spirit of life is here. This is the beginning of justice and equity when we go within in order to be of service in our communities and our world. May it be so. Amen. Our first picture, Mary Magdalene, as you know, if you keep up on your Bible, was one of the three ladies who discovered that the tomb was empty. This is one of the more kind of interesting points of Mary's life. And the fact that the disciples were not the ones who discovered. Mary was also at the crucifixion. And if you remember, many of the disciples were afraid to be there because Jesus was condemned. They did not want to be associated with Jesus. And you remember the cock crowing 3 times and the disciple denying his association with Christ. And then not only was Mary there to find the tomb was empty, Mary Magdalene was the one that Christ revealed himself to. And curiously, she did not recognize him, which is an interesting play. We can talk about that. But then he did tell her who he was, and she told the disciples, and what did they say? She was a woman, so they didn't believe her. So, interesting. So anyway, here's another, we'll see if this one.
Limited information about Mary Magdalene's life before she met Jesus. We know she came from Magdalene, a town on the western shore of the Sea of Galilee. This detail, mentioned in Luke chapter 8, verse 2, provides her with the name Magdalene, signifying her place of origin. Beyond this geographical connection, the Bible remains relatively silent about her family, occupation, or life before encountering Jesus. Some scholars speculate that she might have been a woman of some means, given her ability to travel with Jesus and his disciples. However, concrete evidence to support these claims is lacking. Despite the scarcity of biographical details, the Gospels paint a vivid picture of Mary Magdalene through her actions and unwavering devotion to Jesus. She becomes a prominent figure in the narrative, particularly in the crucial moments leading up to and following Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. Her presence in these pivotal events speaks volumes about her character and the depth of her faith. The Gospels portray Mary Magdalene as a devoted follower of Jesus. She traveled with Jesus and the 12 disciples, providing financial and emotional support as noted in Luke chapter 8. This challenges traditional views, highlighting her active role in Jesus' ministry. The Gospels recount Jesus healing Mary Magdalene from 7 demons. This underscores Jesus' transformative impact on her life. Freed from suffering, she dedicated herself to his teachings. Her presence among the disciples suggests a close relationship with Jesus. She engaged deeply with his message. Witness to history. Mary Magdalene at the crucifixion and resurrection. Mary Magdalene's unwavering faith is most powerfully demonstrated in her presence at Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. While many disciples fled, Mary Magdalene remained at the foot of the cross, with spices. She found the tomb empty and encountered two angels who informed her of Jesus' resurrection. Overwhelmed, she then encountered the risen Christ himself. Jesus entrusted her with informing the other disciples, making her an apostle to the apostles. Debunking the myth. Mary Magdalene and the misconception of a prostitute. Despite her significant role in the Gospels, Mary Magdalene has been subjected to centuries of misinterpretation, most notably the enduring myth that she was a former prostitute. This misconception stems from a sermon by Pope Gregory I in 591 AD, where he conflated Mary Magdalene with other unnamed women mentioned in the Gospels. However, there is no biblical basis for this claim. The Gospels never identify Mary Magdalene as a prostitute or a sinner. This misidentification has had a profound impact on her portrayal throughout history, often overshadowing her true significance as a devoted disciple and witness to the resurrection. Modern biblical scholarship has debunked this misconception, emphasizing the lack of scriptural evidence to support it.
Okay, and does anybody want to venture a guess why Mary Magdalene was transformed from the 13th apostle, which she has been called that, into a prostitute? Think of the early Catholic Church. Think of 13 or 12 male apostles who were jealous of somebody who Jesus revealed himself to first, who came and told them that Jesus was resurrected, and they did not believe her. They were basically jealous of Mary Magdalene, her relationship with Christ. So what do you do when you're jealous of somebody in today's society and the society of long ago? You create slander, you disparage them, you make fun of them, you all gang up to write as many bad things about them as you can possibly think. And then the popes and the Catholic Church, who we all know were not real friendly to women, piled on, and Mary Magdalene became known as a prostitute. We'll talk about that as we kind of go along with the history. Okay, comments on the presentation there. I thought it was pretty interesting. I cut it off that's about a tenth of what was actually there. There was a complete history.
Has the church ever issued any clarification or apology or whatever concerning the popes? The earlier pope was 580 or 600?
580, I think is what it was. I don't think they've ever made, well, I don't know. I'm not a Catholic Church historian, but I do know there have people consider Mary Magdalene a saint. Now, I don't know if she's a beatified saint, but I don't know if the church has actually done it. I think they must have for people to call her a saint.
Within the Catholic Church? Within
the Catholic Church. I'd have to look that up. That I didn't get that far. I just was struck because every time I would uncover a thread of Mary Magdalene's life, there's been many books written about Mary Magdalene. And as we'll get into, Mary Magdalene was an Eastern, and one of the other reasons that she was disparaged, she was a follower of an Eastern cult, or the Eastern understanding of, she was basically a Gnostic or a mystical person. She believed that the inner life is more important than the outer life, which the Catholic Church is everything is your outer life. You come to church, you have to come to church, you have to tithe, you have to buy your way into heaven, you have to obey the Pope, you have to obey the priest, and you have to eat certain foods and not eat certain foods, and there's a lot of behavior. Mary was more of that Indian or Far Eastern mysticism that said your salvation is on the inside, not the outside. I'm not even sure she even talked about heaven. There is a book, the Book of Mary Magdalene, the Book of Mary, which is an apocryphal book, which means it's not accepted as true by the church. And there's, I think, 144 or 244 sayings that are attributed to Mary Magdalene that are written down in this apocryphal book. Many of them are really strange as far as mysticism, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit. And if you're interested, we can do it even farther if we can go farther. But first of all, joys and concerns. Do we have any? What happened? What was the deal with Cecil? Did she not want to have a ride, or?
I can talk about it later.
Okay.
It's no big deal.
It's probably riding with an Uber driver.
Well, I've got one of the people, and that's one of our joys and concerns, one of the people, the women, the single mother who rents from me, just has taken her child to Children's like 3 or 4 times, and she's all in a panic now. Her child has asthma, and she freaks out every time he has a breathing problem and rushes him to Children's, and they give him some IV antibiotic and give him the standard treatments and send him home and say, make sure he takes his medications and uses his inhaler. And I've been there when he's in the living room watching TV. He's supposed to be getting a breathing treatment, and the breathing tube is sitting there beside him and he's watching TV. So if you don't keep up the medication regimen, if you don't do it the way you're supposed to do, you're going to have problems. So, and she's one of those highly strung people. And anyway, she needs money, and she does DoorDash. So I was going to have her go down and get Cecil, and who's the other lady?
Down his knees.
What I was trying to do is say, if you're going to bring them up here, why don't you just bring your kids and stay for church? Because you're going to have to take them home. So you can go home and come back an hour later and get them, but why don't you just stay here? So I was trying to be sneaky is what I was trying to do. Because she needs a church family where she has been before, but she's typical of that generation and that kind of those I hate to say those people, but she goes from church to church. Can I have money for my rent? Can I have money for my electric bill? She still doesn't have a job, and I've been pushing her for a job, and I told her that if you don't pay your rent, you can't stay. I'm not just letting you stay there for free. So, but one of the things I said was I would pay you to go down and be an Uber. I'm not going to pay you $100 a day, but we'll pay you $50 a day, which will more than cover your gas. So that's part of what we're doing. So I'll light a candle for her and her family. They just got back this morning from Children's with another exacerbation of his asthma. But I told her to bring me or send me pictures of the discharge forms. And it's just a standard asthma attack. It's not like life-threatening, critical. His labs are a little bit out, and she's all in a panic about that. And I try to reassure her, but she's not buying that. So whatever, keep her in your thoughts, and we'll see what we can do to help that family out. I had my cataract removed off my right eye. I was amazed at that situation. They give you Versed, which is what we give kids when they break a wrist or break a bone, and we don't send them to surgery. We just set it in the emergency room. What it does is you're still awake and you still know what's going on and you still feel pain, but Versed means you can't remember any of it. So the doctor is wheeling me in, or not the doctor, but the nurse is wheeling me into the operating room in my little chair, my reclining chair. She says, we're going to give you something to relax you, and like the next thing I remember is, wake up, wake up. What, you're done already? Yep, we're done.
You're ready for the next one.
Yeah, the next one will be in a couple weeks. We'll do the other eye. I was kind of questioning, what the whole thing was, but the brightness is just amazing. When something goes on to you gradually, you don't really know the difference. But when it's like when they talk about taking the scales falling from your eyes, I had to wear sunglasses when I walked out. The sun was so bright. It's kind of worried me at the beginning because my eyes, they dilate your eyes to do it, and I couldn't read anything, which is what the optometrist had told me. I really don't want to wear glasses to read. But the surgeon said that as the days go by, your focus will come back, and now I'm actually able to read. So I'm real happy with the way it is. So just a comment on modern medicine: 2 hips, a hernia, an eye. I was completely healthy till I hit 70, and now I'm just falling apart. So. But imagine what it was like in the previous generations when your hips went bad, you were confined to a chair. When your eyes got cataract, you went blind. When you had any kind of like an appendix burst or anything else, you died. We are making tremendous advances in the quality of life. So we want to, light a candle for modern science, which as we observe every day. Has anybody heard? That's part of our, we'll light a candle for Secretary Kennedy. The things that he is proposing, the things that he's talking about, and if you watch on YouTube, there are correctives all the way along. Still saying that vitamin A cures measles or prevents measles. Now there's not only measles attack in Texas, there's whooping cough is spreading. pneumonia. 4 kids have died from pneumonia.
And the flu.
And that's what I'm sorry, I meant to say the flu. And the reason, the vaccination rate in Texas used to be 65 to 70%. It's 45% now. And the lower the vaccination rate, the more kids die. We are regressing back into the dark ages, and people are being told to do that, and they are listening to that. It is truly incredible that parents, I can't believe it.
This slide again also for success in a conclave in the church, that they choose someone, a leader, a world leader, to guide them and guide all of us technically. And I think that's happening this coming week, isn't it?
I think Wednesday they're supposed to start.
It begins.
Yes.
So it's like a candle for success, whatever that means, but that it goes smoothly and it is successful.
They're talking 3 or 4 days to choose a new pope. Interesting. The last pope, he appointed almost a third of the cardinals, but he appointed them from different places. So already you're hearing the politics, which is not supposed to be politics. The African cardinals say Africa is one of the strongest places for Catholic membership. The Catholic membership is spreading very strongly in Africa, so they want to have an African pope. The European popes, or the European cardinals, say, you had a South American pope the last time, so we want it back in Europe. Already you're hearing the little tendrils of disagreement as they come along. One of the scary things is the African Christians, fundamentalist Christians, Catholics, are all much more conservative. We've talked about this before. They are up in arms when the last pope said that gay families could be blessed, not married, just blessed as a gay family. They want to retract that. They want to go back to castigating and isolating gay families. So the question of where the world goes is still hanging up in the air, and we'll see when the white smoke comes out.
Perhaps someone from Iceland, perhaps.
From Iceland, yes. Actually, there are Catholic or cardinals, a lot of Asian cardinals, and they've added new ones on there. So there's a push to have a cardinal or a pope from Asia. So even though every time they interview a cardinal and they say politics is not part of this, this is penitent prayer and guidance from God, it still comes down to politics. So, and I guess we got to throw in, did anybody see the picture from the White House?
Yeah.
I truly believe we are watching the progress into insanity. He posted, he himself, and it wasn't somebody making fun of him, posted a picture of himself as Pope.
It didn't come out of the press office?
Yeah, it came out of the White House's press office. Yes. At first he posted it on X or whatever.
I heard it was an AI generated.
Yeah, it is AI generated.
Yeah.
But I mean,
they were complicit.
he posted it,
He
and
wants
then
to be Pope.
yeah, and then he posted. Then he had the White House posted on the official White House. It wasn't just like a 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm having fun, here's a joke, which that's kind of what people took it at. Then it was posted on the White House, the official White House page, as an official statement. I mean,
would that be considered heresy?
Heresy, and I think insanity is closer to what it is. I mean, the things that are being said and done. I mean, we thought it was a joke when he said he wanted to take Iceland or Greenland back, and he wanted to take the Panama. He's not joking. He wants to do this.
Oh yeah.
And he's already said that. He's told other people to say it, and they sent delegates there to try and encourage people to sign up for it when he wants to make Canada the 51st state. I mean, I'm sure you've heard. I guess we need to light a candle. We're going to have a military parade to celebrate his birthday. And 6,000 soldiers. It's going to cost millions and millions of dollars.
From the Army's budget.
From the Army's budget. And the city of Washington, D.C. is worried because these tanks weigh like 60 tons.
But they're on flatbed trucks.
Well, that's what they're saying. I'm sure Trump isn't going to want to see them on flatbed trucks. He's going to want them to see them driving down, clanking down the streets. So we'll see what happens there. So it's just, and I'm sure they've already got pictures of him with this little Sam Brown belt, with the little strap that goes sideways and the belt that goes around your waist and a bunch of medals on his. If he does that, we have truly gone into third world dictator presentations. We'll have to see whether that actually happens. And that's not even The meme, he's put out a new meme coin, made $95 million just on the transition income from the coin, which is, the coin, all it is a picture of him. There's no intrinsic value. It's not made out of gold or anything else. It's just a picture of
It's
him.
not legal currency.
And people are sending millions of dollars. Who's sending millions of dollars? The country of Dubai spent like $80 million. And what they're doing is buying influence. I give you $80 million, you give me what I want. It's a quid pro quo, a trade.
Yeah.
It's as bald as, it's as clear as the nose on your face. And nobody is saying it. Well, the people that are saying anything about it have no power like us. The people in power who can control it are saying nothing about it. Just incredible. All right, we never are going to forget our sunflowers for Ukraine. That situation, they've signed the treaty with Ukraine, which means the United States gets half the profits of the mining of essential minerals from Ukraine. We don't do anything. We didn't even promise them military support. We just get half the profits to try and discourage Putin from invading the country. So we'll have to see what happens there. But that, to me, is an offer you can't refuse from the mafia. So we'll see what happens with that. Israel, just report last night, they bombed another building in Gaza, over 40 civilians killed. And the Israelis continue to say there's always Hamas people there. The Israelis have said that they want Hamas completely destroyed. That's going to be impossible because every 12-year-old kid whose mother, brother, aunt, uncle, grandfather is killed by the Israelis becomes a Hamas recruit. And we've talked to some of the members here, which is pretty unbelievable, but people say then we should kill them all. As long as there's any Hamas people, they should be dead, which means basically you're going to wipe out the entire population. That is the definition of ethnic cleansing. So we'll have to see what happens there as we continue down the road to perdition. It's pretty scary. Let's see. I can't think of anything else. Troubles abound, and we are here to create a community and support people and basically watch the late night comics and have a little bit of a laugh as we proceed down that road to destruction. All right, one more candle for those thoughts and prayers that you cannot voice, that maybe you're not even aware of. We are here as a community to help if we can. You can at least get emotional support, and we'll try to do whatever we can to help your situation. All right, our message. Basically, what I've got here is Mark chapter 16. Now when Jesus was risen early the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, out of whom he had cast 7 devils. The 7 devils, they discussed that a little bit. What they might have meant, they don't mean literally. Well, some scholars say they did not mean literally 7 devils. They meant it was a difficult exorcism, and it had been done many times to give Mary relief. In the biblical times, and actually up into the scientific revolution of the 1900s, anytime somebody had epilepsy or any kind of nervous problems, they were considered being possessed. And even today, probably more so today, with the same people who consider vitamin A a cure for measles are the same people who think when a child is sick, they are possessed by a demon and they need to be exorcised. So, but the fact that she was sick and had problems is not to be disputed. That's in the Bible. And Christ, among many of his miracles, cured Mary Magdalene. And she became a devoted follower of his. Part of the reason, well, we talked about the reason that she's called a prostitute, but one of the things that is remarkable about Mary Magdalene is she supported Christ and the disciples and stayed with them on the travels, which means she had to have been a person of means. She was not taking money and food and support from the disciples. She was providing it to the disciples. She was the one who was considered probably, in all probability, a wealthy woman who became very loyal to Christ, and actually was considered one of Christ's confidants. He talked to her and was more honest with her than he was with the disciples, and she responded to him and followed his teachings closer and sooner and more faithfully than the actual disciples did. Okay, and she went and told them that had been with him as they mourned and wept. So he appeared to her and told her that he was resurrected. She went and told the disciples, and they, when they had heard that he was alive and had been seen of her, believed not. After that he appeared in another form unto two of them as they walked and went into the country. And they went and told the residue, which means the remainder of the disciples, neither believed they them. Even when he appeared to two disciples on the road, and they told the other disciples, they did not believe it. Afterwards he appeared unto the 11 as they sat at meat, and upbraided them for their unbelief and hardness of heart, because they believed not them which had seen him after he was risen. I love the King James Version. It's so complicated. And he said unto them, Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. So he eventually appeared to the disciples as they gathered together in mourning. And this was, Derek talked about last week, when doubting Thomas came up and said, Prove to me that you are the risen Christ, and put his hand in the wound. And that was a proof that they all observed. So that created the belief of the resurrection of Christ. Okay, let's see. The Gospel of Mary, or the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, is a Gnostic writing discovered in Egypt in 1896. It contains a version of the New Testament events associated with Mary Magdalene. In the Gospels of Matthew and Luke, Mary is instructed by the angel at the tomb to proclaim the good news. Mark recounts that Mary was the first to see and speak of the risen Christ. Contrary to popular belief, as promoted by the later gospel writers, the gospel does not depict Mary as a sinful woman or a prostitute, but rather as a prominent disciple who shared a deep spiritual connection with Jesus. Her role as an apostle, her unique insights into Christ's teaching make this gospel an invaluable resource. Why the darkening picture of Mary, and why is Mary still venerated in the Catholic or First Church? The vestiges of Mary's veneration from the time of Christ linger on. And I told you about there's 6 Marys, 3 basic ones. Mary Magdalene is called the 13th disciple, present at the crucifixion, anointed. The second Mary appointed Christ with precious oil and wiped his feet. This Mary, was also at the crucifixion, as was the mother of Christ, Mary, the Virgin Mary. There is an apocryphal Gospel of Mary that is widely circulated with a doubtful authenticity, doubted by those in charge who cherished beliefs would be questioned or doubted by scholars. That's the question that I have. Uncovering hidden wisdom, key teachings of Mary's Gospel. It offers unique insights into Jesus' teaching that differ from those found in the canonical or accepted Gospels. One prominent theme is the emphasis on inner spiritual knowledge and personal revelation. According to Mary's Gospel, true wisdom is not obtained through external authority, but through introspection and self-discovery. What do you suppose the Pope thought about that? True wisdom is not obtained through external authority. When the priest stands up Sunday and tells you what to believe, what not to believe, who is a faithful person and who is a sinner, Mary's Gospel is telling you, believe what's on the inside, not what the Pope tells you. Additionally, the text explores concepts such as resurrection, salvation, and the nature of reality. It challenges traditional notions of sin and redemption by presenting a more nuanced perspective on human nature and spirituality. The story of Mary empowers us. To many, she is the captive, possessed, enslaved, caught in the midst of crime and tragedy, but at once redeemed, set free, and loved by God himself. She is hope and triumph. She represents the power of truth and love to change the life of the lowest and the most powerlessness of us. She is you and me in search of God. The Gospel of Mary serves to shake our concepts and assumptions of early Christianity. Did Jesus give Mary special and personal knowledge and teaching? Did he take Mary to be his wife? Could the couple have produced children? How many of you saw the other movie, the later movie that had the supposition that Christ had a child, and they had a child. What was the name of it? Tom Hanks was in it. It's a really fantastic movie. I'll give you the synopsis of that next week then, or sometime.
The Da Vinci Code?
Da Vinci Code. The Da Vinci Code is that Christ had a wife, they had a child, and there is relations to Christ all the way along that are still living. And the Catholic Church made an attempt to eliminate that living relative. The Da Vinci Code goes through an imaginary thing where the Church actually is trying to kill the last remaining descendant, blood relative of Christ. It's a really good movie. It's a fun movie, and it's really intriguing, and it goes through. If you, the main thing in the movie that struck me was if you look at we may do that, picture of the Last Supper, which people are facing which way, and the person sitting beside Jesus really looks like a woman sitting beside him, not a disciple, and almost like leaning into him. And they go through the description of the picture and say that's kind of one of the indicators of it. So if you're interested in an interesting movie, go ahead and rent or download the Da Vinci Code and watch that. Tom Hanks is excellent in any movie he does. And this one is especially good. Lots of action, but also lots of a thought process to go through. Could the couple have produced children? Gnostic theology leaves open the possibility. Peter said to Mary, "Sister, we know that the Savior loved you more than all other women. Tell us the words of the Savior that you remember and know, but we have not heard and do not know." Mary answered him and said, "I will tell you what he hid from you." The Gospel of Mary Magdalene, this description may be from another edition of this product. She is a central figure in the Gnostic Christian writings, including the Dialogue of the Savior, the Gospel of Thomas, who is Doubting Thomas, and the Gospel of Mary. These texts portray her as an apostle. Yes. The Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Mary portray her as an apostle, as Jesus' closest and most beloved disciple, and the only one who truly understood his teachings. In the Gnostic texts or Gnostic Gospels, Mary's closeness to Jesus results in tension with another disciple, Peter, due to her gender and Peter's envy of the special teachings given to her. In the Gospel of Philip's text, the translation says the companion of, and there's a loss of print, is Mary of Magdala, and there's another loss, her more important than the disciples, and kissed her often on the, and then there's another loss of words, we don't know what kissed her on the, we don't know where he was kissing her. It is widely accepted among secular historians that, like Jesus, Mary Magdalene is a real historical figure. Nonetheless, very little is known about her life. Unlike Paul the Apostle, Mary Magdalene left behind no known writings of her own. She was never mentioned in any of the Pauline epistles or any of the general epistles. The earliest and most reliable sources about her life are the three synoptic Gospels of Mark, Matthew, and Luke, which were all written during the 1st century. Mary was by far the most common Jewish names for girls and women during the 1st century, so it's necessary for the authors of the Gospel to call her Magdalene in order to distinguish her from all the other women named Mary who followed Jesus. Although the Gospel of Mark, reputed by scholars to be the earliest surviving gospel, does not mention Mary Magdalene until Jesus' crucifixion, the Gospel of Luke provides a brief summary of her role during his ministry. Soon afterwards, he went on through cities and villages, proclaiming and bringing the good news of the kingdom. The 12 were with him, as well as some women who had been cured of evil spirits and infirmities. Mary, called Magdalene, from whom 7 demons had gone out, and Joanna, the wife of Herod's steward Chuza, and Susanna, and many others who provided for them out of their resources. So the women provided out of their resources for the apostles. That's from Luke 8. The conversion of Mary Magdalene, according to the Gospel of Luke, Jesus exorcised 7 demons. As I said, we don't know whether there were 7 demons or they're just an especially difficult exorcism and he had to do it 7 times. Another scholar says the number 7 may be merely symbolic, since in Jewish tradition 7 was the number of completion. So that Mary was possessed by 7 demons may simply mean she was completely overwhelmed by their power. In either case, Mary must have suffered from severe emotional or psychological trauma for an exorcism of this kind to have been perceived as necessary. Consequently, her devotion to Jesus resulting from this healing must have been very strong. The gospel writers normally relish giving dramatic descriptions of Jesus' public exorcisms, with the possessed person wailing and thrashing and tearing at his or her clothes. By contrast, Mary's exorcism receives little attention, may indicate that either Jesus performed it privately or that the recorders did not perceive it as particularly dramatic. In conclusion, remember the Gospels were written, edited, and canonized by men who considered women inferior and needed to be ruled by men. Mary, the Mother of God, is revered but diminished from real womanhood. How? She's not a real woman because she was a virgin. The whole virgin birth, which means she didn't have sex, which for men is a really scary thing when you talk about women and sex, whether they're having sex with them or somebody else is. That's the whole power over women thing, that you don't want anybody else to have sex with your women. That's why it's such an insult. Forever separating her from all other women. Mary Magdalene was forever considered a prostitute, an appellation never mentioned in the original text of the Bible. Later scholars, as you have heard, considered her a woman of means who, as the 13th apostle, was faithful to Christ on the cross, Christ in death, and Christ resurrected. She put to shame all the other disciples, and they and their followers never forgave her. Comments? Questions?
What you were reading to us, was that recently written, or was that something that someone...
Recently, in the last 20 years or so.
Okay, so it
And
could
that's
possibly be, not that I'm doubting anything you said, but basically influenced by women's rights movement.
I think these people are the progenitors. They are the part of the foundation of the women's rights movement. This happened to stimulate women to say that women have a stronger role in society. What I have here is pulled from many different sources, WikiLeaks the encyclopedia, and there's many books published. I didn't get the books, I didn't read them. What I read was the little blurbs. You know, when they publish a book, they put a little blurb about what's about, which was kind of irritating because they'll give you hints about what's there, but they won't actually tell you what the facts are. So that's why some of it's kind of nebulous. But there was multiple people, and there's multiple books about Mary Magdalene dating back quite a few years. But that's the stimulus. That's the intuition, is that she has been, and that's why we do critical thinking. That's why we want education. And we didn't even talk about what the Ohio legislature is doing to the new laws. They're still trying to cut. I went to a meeting with Rodney Creech, who's our state representative. And Rodney is a nice guy, but he's not the brightest bulb on the tree. He says, and this is kind of a sidelight. Number one, we talked about the libraries. The Ohio libraries are very well funded, and what they're changing is, it used to be in the budget. Every time the budget went up, the library got a percentage of the budget, like 1% or 1.2%. So when the budget increased, library funds increased. What the Ohio legislature is doing is taking that off and saying you're going to get, and what they're saying is we're not cutting the library funding. They're not. What they're doing is keeping it exactly the same. So when the budget goes up, the library funding is not going to increase. So the libraries have to appeal to the legislature if they need more money, to ask for more money, and you know how likely that's going to happen. So what the libraries are getting now is what they're going to be getting for the next 20 years, which means they're basically going to slowly strangle them. He also said, and believes this sincerely, why do you have to have a library in every town? I mean, and we're talking about fire departments. Fire departments they've run out of volunteers because nobody works close to the fire in their city anymore. So a lot of fire departments are unable to respond when there's a fire in their town, like El Dorado. Maybe there's a fire in El Dorado and there's only one person in town that brings it on, so they have to have more. So Rodney's solution is we set up central fire stations, like in the county seat, in Eaton for Preble County, or in Greenville for Darke County, and there are no more local fire departments. There's paid fire people that are stayed there all year long, or all day long, and they come out. what's the response time? And what's the number of people that are there? When you have volunteer fire, I'm going way over here, but you have volunteer fire departments, you have 7 or 8 volunteer fire departments with 3 or 4 people. So when you have a big fire, you've got 100 people there eventually.
How much equipment would you lose?
Well, that's what he's saying is what we're doing, and what Rodney's saying is we're spending for each town, El Dorado, New Madison, everybody has a couple $100,000 or more worth of equipment. But if you've only got 2 guys there, they can only take 1 pumper. They can't take the tanker, they can't take the second pumper, the backup pumper. They can't even take the ambulance. If we have a central fire station, then there will always be somebody there, and we won't have all this other equipment. All the equipment is going to be stored in the central station, so there'll be less equipment. But the trouble is, you got less people too. You're only going to have whatever the people there are, and whoever's on backup can be called in, which means you're going to have half or a third. Plus, each one of those guys is $100,000 or more by the time you figure salary, insurance, pension payments, and everything else. Volunteer firemen, we don't get paid anything. I mean, we get our uniforms. They gave me a shirt and a jacket. Well, actually, I had to buy my own jacket, and I bought my own hat. So basically, you are a volunteer. You help. But I mean, I know this from personal experience. Last time I was a volunteer was in Pleasant Hill, and I was not working at the time. And the other pastor in town, I'm not the pastor, but my wife's the other pastor in town who was a volunteer. There was a fire at the elevator. 2 of us on the truck. He ran the pumper, and I went up through the man lift and went up into the top of the elevator. And basically the bees wings, if you know what those are, when you clean corn, when corn comes in, it's got those little fluffy things on them. And when the fans blow those off, they build up in big piles up there, and something sparked and set those on fire. So it took us like 2 minutes to put the fire out. But there was only 2 of us there for the first 10 minutes. But like 20 minutes later, there was like 50 people there and 5 trucks. So if there would have been a fire, then we would have had the backup that we needed. But this was like 30 years ago that this happened. There's no way I could climb the elevator now. So anyway, but that was one of the statements that he made. But he doesn't. We asked him about farming, and he said that doesn't affect me. I plant beans and corn, and I don't have any idea what tariffs do or anything else. I just plant my corn and I sell it to the elevator. I don't know whether he's being purposely ignorant or just doesn't really understand. But like 3 days later, China canceled all the purchases of soybean meal coming from the United States. Ships in the middle of the ocean, $11 billion worth of soybeans going to China was canceled and had no place to go. I wanted to email Rodney and say, how much are your beans worth today versus what they were worth 2 days ago? Because if you don't have any place to sell them, your beans are not worth $11 a bushel, they're worth $5 a bushel. So it will affect you. And that's the loyal Republican response, is we are here to save money and protect the taxpayers. And we had a meeting there's like 15 of us, and we were very polite, didn't yell, wasn't any signs or anything. And I appreciate his ability and his willingness to meet with us. But that's what he said. If he went to a general meeting and somebody started yelling at him, he would leave. And I don't blame him for that. They don't get paid to have people yell at them, but they do get paid to have somebody listen to him. And Rodney is a farmer, and I didn't know how big his farm is, and he also has a lawn maintenance company, and he gets paid $70,000 a year to be an Ohio representative. And his wife is the auditor or something in recorder in Preble County. So they're milking the public teat in pretty good shape down there.
What was his position on education?
Is that the same thing? He does not believe that he supports vouchers, but he thinks there should be an income limit on vouchers, which I applaud him for that. In other words, and we explained to him, and he understands that.
I think it's 450% of the federal population.
But in some places there is no income limit. But anyway, he agrees that rich people who are already sending their kids to parochial schools shouldn't be supported in that. And it's for poor people.
Why are we getting $500 million more for next year's budget?
Well, Rodney, and what he said was, I'm just a member of the legislature. I don't control what happens. I have my opinion, and I will be honest about it. Now, he can be honest to us because he knows what we think, because it was all Democrats there besides him. but I'm sure he doesn't go in and fight for this in the legislature. But like I say, at least he didn't try to defend everything all the way down the line.
And his position on vaccinations?
Vaccination is the same thing. He thinks vaccinations are healthy and healthful and you should get people vaccinated. He's not a.
That wasn't his position during COVID, but we could talk about that.
Well, and the thing is, he's very libertarian. I mean, if he says I don't know what his position is, if you should be compensated, but he says if you don't want a vaccination, you shouldn't be forced to have one. But we didn't get to the point to ask him, well, if you work in a hospital as a staff member and you're not vaccinated and you're spreading the disease, the hospital says you can't work. We didn't ask him, should that person be able to work and spread the disease? All he said was, if you don't want a vaccination, you shouldn't be forced to get vaccinated. Which I don't have a problem with that as long as you accept the consequences. If you're not vaccinated, your kid shouldn't be in school. If you're not vaccinated and you're in a healthcare position, you shouldn't be working where you're spreading the disease to other people. So there is a middle road there. Where was I going with that? I don't know. Anyway, politics and religion, politics and the community intersect. You can't say we're not going to have politics in church, because everything that we do in church supports the community, supports the future of the country, and politics is the future of the country, and it is getting scarier and scarier. Okay, offering. Fish, yes, first Sunday of the month. If you have something to share, please do. If you need something, let us know. What are we hearing for the offering?
Tiptoe through the tulips.
Tiptoes through the tulips, all right.
Tiny Tim.
Tiny Tim. Because I'm hitting the buttons here and nothing's happening.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what's going on there. I do the same thing. I hit slideshow.
Don't know if there's something else on the TV settings or not.
Yeah, it's or something we hit somewhere when something got changed. Whatever, I'm going to have to work on that, so we're not out of the woods yet. All right, closing hymn.
Number 10.
Number 10.
World Love.
Immortal Love. chalice is, oh, we got that. Let's see. Be kind, be brave, be just, be merciful, be hopeful. This is how we keep the chalice flame burning until we are together again to light it anew. Postlude? That's you.
That's me.
That's you. What are we hearing?
The words on my song is called "He Keeps Me Singing," but it comes from a contemporary setting of church classics.
He keeps me singing, so it doesn't sound like a hymn, but it is based on a hymn.
So it is from a contemporary setting of church classic music.
Good.
And it's called "He Keeps Me Singing."
Jazz in church.
Yeah.
I don't care what they say. Good job. All right, I had to restart the computer like always, every answer. Unplug it, plug it in again. So, and my screen here still got some weird stuff on it. I don't know what it is. I'll show you the rest of the pictures. That's Mary Magdalene with the stone and Mary Magdalene with the angels. And this was the children's story. At least you got to hear that. This is Mark chapter 16 that I was reading off of. That's good. And that's what we're supposed to have been singing. This I just threw in. How many of you heard about this Pam Bondi at the White House?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear that? All right, let me just... More than 22 million fentanyl pills were intercepted at the border.
Which border?
So we saved, President Trump saved 328 million lives. He saved the number of lives of the entire population of the United States. This is what they're saying in the cabinet meeting.
Now just think about when he becomes Pope.
And this is from the Daily Show, and what he says is, at the rate Trump is going, he will eliminate death by August. Because they took 22 million fentanyl pills, and she started out, they had a whole series which is too long. She started out and said he saved like 33 million people, which if you had 28 pills and they each took a pill, that's getting close. Then she said it was 178 million because each one of those pills you divided in 4 pieces, and that would have killed, each pill would have killed 4 people. And then I don't know how she got to where she saved the entire population of the whole country. But this is in the cabinet meeting, and the cabinet meeting, I may show you that. If you saw the picture of it, every person in the cabinet meeting had a MAGA red hat in front of them.
Yes.
Every one of them did the North Korea, great leader, dear leader, you are the greatest president. If you could have heard that, you could have heard Pam Bondi say, you're the greatest president we've ever had in the history of the United States. Just doing the whole North Korean thing, which is why I totally would not be surprised to see Trump at the parade, the military parade, wearing a big hat with a big eagle on it and medals all across this thing and a colored sash. And I wouldn't be surprised at what there'll be people with a big pole and an ostrich feather on it fanning him because it's going to be warm.
Maybe it's around during his next State of the Union message.
Yeah.
Then when it came to the GDP, it was Biden's fault.
Yes. Well, and if you heard, when the stock market was going up before the election, that was because everybody knew Trump was going to be elected and it went up. Then when the stock market went down after the election, that's Biden's fault because it's Biden. I mean, it's like a 5-year-old kid. And the scary thing is this 5-year-old kid is running our country and has control of the nuclear codes. And he's surrounded himself. If you remember the first administration, things went on a pretty even keel because they had traditional Republicans saying, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. These people around him now are brown-nosed and unbelievable. They're saying, you are the greatest person in the world. You are the Pope. I mean,
I see more and more statements online about him running for a third term.
Not running for a third term, just assuming a third term.
Yes.
Because there's no running for it. It's not permitted in the Constitution.
Yes.
And there's no way they're going to get a constitutional amendment. So what he's going to do is declare a national emergency and say martial law is now in effect. And he's already got the people in charge of the military.
Stay in office.
Which before, when he tried to call out the military on January 6th to support him, the military leaders said, this is not an emergency. You don't need the National Guard down there. But those people are gone now when he calls out the military. He's already sent the military to the border. There's more than 7,000 American troops on the border, and they now have the ability to arrest people and to shoot people if they need to.
Yeah.
And did you see in Texas, they took a strip of land 60 feet wide and like 120 feet long, and they named it a fort. That's how the military is able to do this. They can't operate on civilian territory.
Right.
But if you make this border land a fort, a military fort, then they can protect it like they would any other fort. So that's the subterfuge they use to get around it. We are parroting 1930s in Germany to a T, and that's exactly what happened there. All right, so this is my horses. This horse through the years is looking at the Capitol building, which I thought was an interesting picture. And this is just a horse running down the road through his ears. So, all right, there's coffee and donuts. So enjoy. And our candle stays lit for all those people who are not here, who would like to see if we could.
Some woman wants some help with genealogy. I don't know if we can help her. What, somebody at the store or something.
Insanity. He's got all those people now, as Tim said. And the reason why they're worried is make America great hats. They're saying he's great because they don't want to fire him. Yeah. They don't want to fire him. It's simple as that. And he knows that he is so hung up on wealthy and brilliant ego, his protective side there, that he knows he can manipulate people by this whole air of what the handing book. Yes, I'm sure he has. Yes. According to his own words, he's a very stable genius. He said that his intellect became questionable in his first year, first term. He made sure everybody knew. He was quoted as saying, "I'm so excited to see this," and that became a bestseller book. Not only Washington, it's crazy. It's truly crazy. But you know, that White House is so out of control. Any reasonable press officer, whether it was all the way up from the head honcho down to the lowest